What if Anakin became the Grand Master? That's our story for today. The story begins on Coruscant. Explosions echoed through the Senate district as Separatist transports descended, unloading battle droids into the city. Palpatine hurried from his office, Yoda at his side, the tiny Jedi Master barely keeping up. Only an hour ago, Coruscant was quiet. Now, blaster fire rained from every direction. The attack made little tactical sense. It was reckless, even for the CIS. But Yoda quickly realized what the Separatists were trying to pull off. It was all a distraction for the real goal of the attack, to kidnap the Chancellor. He was right. Shock T was assigned to protect him, but soon Yoda took over by himself, certain that Grievous would come. Dozens of Magna Guards pursued them. Two emerged from the smoke ahead. Yoda leapt, dismantling them in seconds, but more arrived. They kept coming, squads pouring from the haze, surrounding the Jedi Master. The Separatists clearly invested heavily in capturing Palpatine. Suddenly, the air shaft above shrieked. A loud sound echoed before them, like a heavy steel plate was dropped from the sky. Smoke rose around them, pushed aside by the impact. Suddenly, 4 lightsabers ignited. It was Grievous. For the first time, Yoda heard the voice that haunted the galaxy. "Your tiny lightsaber will make a fine addition to my collection, little Jedi." Grievous attacked, all 4 blades slashing. Yoda dodged with ease, severed one arm, then another, cutting through Magna Guards mid-leap. In a blur of motion, he sliced off both of Grievous's legs, leaving the cyborg screaming, helpless. Palpatine watched with a pleased smile as Yoda cut down Magna Guards by the dozen, the Chancellor safe in the shadows. Yoda could escape at any moment. He could leap to safety, but no. His Jedi ideals demanded he stand his ground, defeat them all, or die trying. The violet glow of electrostaffs filled the air as more droids surged. Yoda spun, carving through 5 more, but even the Grand Master was not invincible. A Magna Guard struck him with its staff. Yoda stumbled, strength fading, then slipped, falling from the platform, cloak whipping in the wind. He crashed against the side of the building, barely conscious, bouncing even further away. Suddenly, in the chaos of it all, the wind around him went silent, and he heard a familiar voice. Yoda. Anakin must become the Grand Master. I've seen the future. It's his destiny. Half delirious, Yoda couldn't tell if he was dreaming or dying. Above, Palpatine stared down, shocked. Around him lay heaps of shattered Magna Guards, millions, possibly billions of CIS credits reduced to scrap. Mace Windu arrived, cutting down the last of the droids, but the majority of the job was done anyway. Suddenly, Windu heard a robotic growl coming from beneath the hills of droid scrap. Grievous lay defenseless, without limbs, buried beneath the wreckage. Finally, he reached the Chancellor. Palpatine just pointed down into the Coruscant cityscape and told Windu Yoda slipped, and it seemed he went unconscious while falling. Windu thought for a second, then nodded to Palpatine and told him to find shelter. Without hesitation, he leapt from the platform to find his Jedi friend. Meanwhile, on the invisible hand, Dooku was still patiently waiting for the Chancellor's arrival. It was taking way longer than he expected. It worried him, and he was starting to get really impatient. The invisible hand shook under the impact of constant fire. Republic Venators around it were launching at it constantly, and Dooku knew the ship would not last much longer, but neither would he if he left before Sidious showed up. Sidious would kill him for sure for destroying his plan. Only a minute more passed when Dooku realized it. He had made a grave mistake. The ship tilted downward and Dooku slammed hard into the window of the observation deck chamber. He realized it was already too late. He would never make it to the escape pods in time, especially not with the ship tilted 90 degrees like that. It was hard to comprehend, but he wouldn't make it out alive. All because his fear of Sidious had blinded him. His plan had clearly failed, or Grievous would have returned with him to the ship a long time ago. On Coruscant's upper levels, Windu finally found Yoda. Blood was pouring from his skull, and just about every bone in his body seemed to be broken. But somehow, he realized, the Grand Master was still alive. Suddenly, Yoda grabbed Windu's arm, clearly in enormous pain. Windu knew the truth. Yoda would never last long enough to get proper medical help. In fact, only moving him would probably kill him almost instantly. Yoda suddenly spoke in a low, raspy tone. "Mace. The Force spoke to me. Grand Master. Skywalker must be." Windu looked in confusion and terror as Yoda died right after those words, clearly trying to elaborate but unable to. That was all he could say before the Grand Master of the Jedi Order died. Windu stood, in shock, as a loud explosion of invisible hands destruction echoed in the distance. The flames of battle vanished, and the remaining Separatist forces jumped to hyperspace in a desperate escape. Anakin and Obi-Wan landed in their fighters in the Jedi hangar, and after many months, smelled the unpleasant industrial scent of Coruscant. They rushed back so they could help with the sudden attack, but when they arrived, the battle was already wrapping up. Most of the fleet was destroyed, and the Chancellor was secured, so they helped with the air defense as much as possible before returning to the temple. But in the Jedi meditation chambers, Mace sat with a disturbed look on his face. Coruscant was still in chaos. The Jedi relied on Windu to help them recover from the loss of Yoda to lead them, but Windu needed some time for himself. He needed to clear his mind. Yoda's final words echoed in his mind. Why did Yoda use those exact words as his last? What was so important about them? Anakin becoming Grand Master was crazy. He was barely 22. In that moment, Windu decided to just let it go. Yoda clearly wasn't thinking straight before dying. It was the only explanation, so Windu stopped his meditation and slowly opened his eyes. But what he saw next almost threw him off his meditation platform. The ghost of Yoda loomed before Windu. He couldn't believe it. This was not possible. He wanted to speak, but Yoda was faster, telling him that he sensed confusion in him. Listen to me. You did not, have you? Wanted to forget about my final words, did you? The room fell silent until Mace spoke. How are you here? Now Yoda spoke. Listen. You must. Only listen. Much time I have not. Skywalker must be the Grand Master. Master Qui-Gon has foreseen it. To a dark place this future leads. Becomes the Grand Master. Skywalker must. Before Mace could speak again, Yoda vanished, leaving Mace confused and shaken. But life in the Jedi Council did not change. Soon, Yoda's funeral was held. It was an incredibly sad moment for the entire Jedi Order, one filled with sorrow and uncertainty. And soon after that, the next first official council meeting after the Battle of Coruscant was held. Windu was naturally disturbed. Many masters noticed his lack of attention. They discussed the aftermath of the Separatists' ferocious attack on Coruscant for a long time before coming to the last thing on their long list of topics that had to be discussed. The Chancellor himself had requested for Anakin to be put on the Jedi Council. As the masters started discussing this unusual proposition, Mace knew it was his opportunity to speak up. He spoke, saying that what he would say next would surely sound crazy. He told them all about what had happened before Yoda died, what he had told him about Anakin, and how his Force ghost had spoken to him again, urging for Anakin to become the Grand Master. Windu had strong authority in the council, but even his authority couldn't prevent a laugh or two from some Jedi masters. Some simply stared at him with a blank expression. Fisto showed his beautiful, gleaming white teeth. When the chamber fell silent again, Plo Koon spoke. He told the masters that he feared he was going crazy, but he, too, was visited by the ghost of Master Yoda, telling him the exact same thing. The council took it at least a little more seriously this time around. At the end, Obi-Wan also spoke up, saying that he, too, had felt something. He didn't see a ghost. However, he did hear a quiet whisper saying something about Anakin, and just like that, perhaps the craziest joke ever spoken in this chamber became a complete reality, confirmed by 3 Jedi Masters. The discussion went on for a while after that. Mundi, as always, argued that this was simply the involvement of the Sith. Most Masters didn't know what to think about it, but in the end, what else could they do other than call Anakin to the Jedi Council and tell him everything? Anakin was naturally shocked. What were the Masters talking about? Like he didn't have enough craziness going on in his life with this war raging on and his nightmares. Now, he was being told by Windu that he would be the new Grand Master. Was this some kind of twisted joke? He wasn't even on the council, but nonetheless, Anakin would take a seat at Yoda's spot, and in that moment it became very much real and official. Anakin Skywalker just became a Jedi Grand Master. Weird looks filled the chamber for hours, but at the end of the day, it wasn't that big of a deal. Sure, Anakin now carried great authority and responsibility, but Mace knew they had to respect Master Yoda's dying wish, and secretly, he was still in charge anyway. This changed everything for Anakin. His mind was racing, his thoughts all going back to Padme and how to save her. This all felt like nothing but a twisted joke. like Windu would wake him up at any moment and scream at him, "Wake up, motherfucker! It was all only a dream, young skywanker!" But that did not happen. So Anakin just decided to blame it on the Force. The Force was giving him this responsibility, and now the Force was also giving him a chance to save Padme. The next couple of days weren't very eventful for Anakin. His life didn't change much. Now that he was back on Coruscant, all he did all day was spend time with Padme and, of course, visit the Jedi archives, which now he had full access to as the Jedi Grand Master. The knowledge he found there was invaluable. In merely a couple of days, his connection to the Force strengthened by a long mile. Nobody was holding him back anymore. Old Jedi powers, deeper understanding of the Force, everything these holocrons possessed was now also accessible to him. He researched how to save Padme and quickly discovered a Jedi power called Force Healing. Although it was mostly abandoned nowadays, he figured the least he could do was try teaching himself this power to save Padme. At the end of the day, he was a Jedi with the strongest potential ever. Any ability like that came incredibly naturally to him. But near the Jedi Temple, Palpatine was looking out of his transparent steel window, observing the countless sky lanes wrapped around countless buildings. He was very disturbed. Dooku and Grievous were both dead, and the war could be over incredibly soon. This meant he had to make a move on Anakin now, or lose him forever. And on the topic of Anakin, he had just found out that he was made a Grand Master. This shocked Palpatine beyond belief. It was crazy. What the hell were the Jedi doing? He was confused beyond belief. He figured all he could do was ask Anakin how this happened when he saw him next time, and hopefully, by then, he'd also be able to turn him to the dark side. Soon after, Windu took off to Kashyyyk, as somebody had to help the Wookiees in their war effort. Anakin also decided that he'd go to Utapau, as it was evident that the remaining separatist leaders were hiding there. Capturing them would end the war swiftly. Obviously, most masters did not agree with Anakin on this one at all, but he was the Grand Master. He had the authority to decide these kinds of things. But after that council session, Obi-Wan approached him. He told Anakin that he'd go to Utapau. He had to stay in the Jedi Temple. People needed him here. Whatever the reason was for Yoda to want him to be the Grand Master, it was obvious this would somehow change the course of history. His place was here, in the heart of the Republic. Anakin agreed, and soon Obi-Wan left for Utapau to arrest the Separatist leaders. Anakin then went to Palpatine's office, where finally, Palpatine would figure out why Anakin was made the Grand Master. After days of not seeing him, Palpatine greeted Anakin like a proud father. They paced, and Palpatine decided to first tell Anakin about the tragedy of Darth Plagueis the Wise. Anakin listened with curiosity, and after Palpatine was finished, Anakin asked how he knew about this. The Jedi archives do not mention a Sith Lord named Darth Plagueis, Anakin said. Besides, Sith cannot heal. Only Jedi can heal people. Sith can only transfer life energy. It's not in their nature. Suddenly, Palpatine realized the hard truth. It was clear the Anakin standing before him was not the same Anakin he knew only a couple of days ago. He had access to the Jedi archives. He knew everything, or at least too much to be susceptible to his manipulation. He also didn't feel any distress or worry in Anakin. That was because Anakin knew he had done everything he could to try to help Padme. All of the knowledge the Jedi possessed about Force healing was now his. If there was a way to help Padme, it was not through the dark side. At last, Palpatine asked Anakin why he was made the Grand Master. How was that possible? Anakin explained that it was Master Yoda's dying wish. Apparently, the Force spoke to him. Windu even said Qui-Gon himself spoke to him, although that was debatable. But nonetheless, something or somebody urged Yoda to make him the Grand Master. When Palpatine heard this, his face went pale. Could it be? Could the will of the Force itself be changing galactic history? All just to prevent him from winning? Palpatine suddenly felt sick like never before. The only thing that rivaled his own power was the Force itself, and if the Force had told Yoda what Anakin was saying, then it was already over, so Palpatine told Anakin he wasn't feeling too well. He was overwhelmed with work through the last couple of days. He just needed some rest. Anakin understood, bowed to the Chancellor, and left. He flew to Padme's apartment and decided to spend the night with her. He was nervous about Obi-Wan, but there was nowhere he would rather be than with Padme and his unborn baby. But in 500 Republica, Palpatine swallowed hard as he felt it, everything crushing before his very eyes. The Force itself was working against him, or maybe the whole council just went crazy to make Anakin a Grand Master. Whatever it was, Palpatine made a decision in that moment. It might be irrational, but he had to execute Order 66. He had to finish it now, prevent Anakin from reaching his destiny, whatever that might be. Whatever the Force was doing, it wasn't in his favor. Anakin was sitting on a veranda with Padme, thinking about his future, about Obi-Wan, and also about Yoda's last words. What could it all mean? What was all of that leading to? Suddenly, Anakin noticed Padme staring into the distance, unshaken. He looked in the direction she was looking, and a horrified look covered his face. A large pile of smoke was lifting straight from the Jedi Temple. They just stared at it for a moment. Then Padme stormed inside her apartment and picked up a datapad. There wasn't much information on the HoloNet about this incident yet. No video or images, only some text. The Jedi executed treason against the Chancellor and are to be immediately terminated. Padme and Anakin looked in horror, just staring at the sentence on the datapad for a moment. Suddenly, Anakin stormed outside and sat near the fountain looking at the sunset. He knew he needed to go help the temple immediately, but suddenly, a horrible realization hit him. One after another, glimpses of the past, flashbacks filled his mind. Everything snapped into place. Palpatine got upset after he said the Sith could not heal. He looked nervous. Suddenly, he saw it. How was he so naive all this time? All of the years of Palpatine's grooming suddenly snapped together in his mind. His mind was clear. As a true Jedi, he saw the truth. When he stopped showing interest in the dark side, that's when Palpatine got upset. And now, clones were marching into the Jedi Temple. But how? How could clones do this? Then he remembered Fives. He said the Chancellor was involved with a bigger plot to betray the Jedi, to make clones obey against their will. The details weren't clear, but something was. Chancellor Palpatine was a Sith Lord. He hugged Padme one last time and immediately took off. He would do what he must. Palpatine was looking out of his window with a pleased face. A bigger and bigger cloud of smoke surrounded the Jedi Temple. Everything was proceeding exactly as he had foreseen. A lingering presence in the Force suddenly came to his attention. It was close, very close. Somebody was hiding from him in the Force, and they were hiding well, but nonetheless, as they got closer and closer, their presence in the Force became more and more obvious. Suddenly, Palpatine heard a crash. His royal guards fell to the ground with a violent push. Sidious now understood. The Jedi were preoccupied with the clones, except one. Anakin was here. Anakin spoke. "I know you're behind all of this. And why are you so sure about this, my boy?" Palpatine replied, "I understand everything now. You were the one clouding the Jedi's minds. You orchestrated this war." It was clear. There was no denying it. Anakin had to die. Palpatine spoke again in a malicious voice. "It seems there's only one way to finish this." Anakin ignited his blue lightsaber, its glow washing the Chancellor's office in a cold, ethereal light. Palpatine's crimson blade flared to life with a sharp hiss. Without warning, Palpatine lunged. Before Anakin could fully register the movement, the Sith Lord was already upon him. He thought he was ready, but nothing could prepare him for this. Palpatine spun faster than any Jedi Anakin had ever faced, his strikes precise and merciless, but Anakin stayed calm, collected. Sidious caught him off guard more than once, yet each time Anakin adjusted, changing his stance and retreating just enough to regain his footing. Palpatine's blows were unnaturally heavy, throwing Anakin's saber wide with every clash, breaking his guard apart piece by piece. Suddenly, Palpatine pivoted. Anakin missed a block, and the Sith spun and drove a brutal kick into Anakin's chest. Anakin was launched into the air before he even felt the pain, slamming to the floor and landing hard on one knee. Breathless, dazed, he realized the truth. This wasn't working. Sidious was too powerful. Blood dripped from his nose as he wiped it away and rose once more. The room was utterly silent, save for the distant, echoing clash of their sabers, a sharp, unpleasant rhythm filling the void. Anakin advanced again, this time differently. His usual aggression returned, but it was tempered. controlled. He fed on Palpatine's darkness without succumbing to it, almost as if he had slipped into Vapad itself. His strikes were precise, calculated, a perfect harmony of Gemso's power against Juyo's chaos. Now, Palpatine was the one retreating. This became a test of endurance. No leaps, no punches, only pure dueling skill. And in that arena, Anakin was unmatched. Palpatine kept giving ground, unease creeping into his eyes. It couldn't be possible. This boy, this Jedi, couldn't be this powerful. It had to be the Force itself, tilting the fight in his favor. Anakin spun and struck, every move guided not only by training but by the wisdom of the ancient Jedi. Lessons from the archives, techniques passed down through centuries, meditations on control and clarity from the age of the Old Republic, all of it converging within him in this single moment. In only a couple of days, the Jedi archives uplifted his power, making him calm and collected. His footwork was flawless. Sidious was faltering. Desperation seeped into the Sith Lord's strikes. They circled back toward the center of the office, and then, with a snarl, Palpatine unleashed a storm of blue lightning. Anakin raised his saber, catching the bolts, but the raw power drove him back, step after step. His blade barely held against the onslaught. Palpatine laughed, a twisted, venomous sound, his resolve unshaken. Images flashed in Anakin's mind. Padme, Obi-Wan, Qui-Gon, the Jedi Temple, Ahsoka. Only the crackle of lightning and Palpatine's cackling broke through the storm in his head. And then, clarity. Palpatine had many tricks, yes, but so did he. Anakin lowered his saber, extended his free hand, and absorbed the lightning. Palpatine poured more and more power into him, but Anakin stood unyielding, unmoved. Then, with a single step forward, Anakin unleashed it. A massive blast of Force energy erupted from his hand, hurling Sidious across the office. Anakin himself was thrown back as well, rolling, skidding, bracing against the cold, hard floor. When he finally stopped, gasping, he looked up. Palpatine was slammed in the opposite direction, violently. His body crumpled against the durasteel frame of the massive window, denting it inward. A shard of torn metal pierced his stomach. Sidious's vision dimmed, darkness flooding his mind as he looked across the ruined office at a lone, glowing figure standing tall amidst the wreckage. And in that instant, he understood. He truly was the chosen one. Darth Sidious died with that thought, as the galaxy's uncertain future lay ahead, in the hands of Anakin Skywalker. In the Jedi Temple, the Jedi were falling one by one. Fisto, Mundi, Dralig, and Kolar were the main Jedi holding the defenses. But even so, it wasn't looking great. The clones kept advancing. Suddenly, a blue blade slashed through a trooper far on the other side of the hallway, and then another. Clones turned, opening fire on the hooded figure, but Anakin stood tall, deflecting every blaster bolt with ease. The other Jedi watched as the Grand Master tore through troopers like it was nothing, determined to reach the remaining Jedi in the temple and save them. The battle kept raging, but with many powerful Jedi Masters, especially Master Skywalker, in the temple, the clones realized there was just no way to take them down. Slowly, but surely, they came back to their senses as further commands from Sidious perished with him. Obi-Wan returned from the Outer Rim, having arrested the Separatist leaders. And although many Jedi fell across the galaxy, the Separatist army was somehow in even worse shape than Republic's. Without so many CIS leaders, arrested or dead, the war easily ended. Obi-Wan and Windu flew back to Coruscant, where the uncertainty in the Senate and among the clones clouded their future. Ahsoka returned to the Order, sadly without Maul though. Anakin realized it. His visions wouldn't come true. Palpatine's involvement was what endangered Padme, and now that he was gone, the nightmares stopped. And as Padme gave birth to Luke and Leia, Windu realized it. They had made the right choice. Yoda was right. Everything that unfolded in the last couple of weeks would never have happened if they hadn't made Anakin the Grand Master. As Yoda told him, it was all meant to be.